An active weather pattern is developing this week with multiple storms of interest moving across the country from Monday all the way to Friday here, and I'll track them all in this video as we've got a big warm-up that's going to really help to support these storm systems as they bring anything from severe weather and even heavy rainfall and flooding, all the way to even some snowfall chances in the north. I've got the details on everything right here, so stick around. Thank you so much for joining me here at One Nation Weather. Don't forget to check out Weatherbell maps in the description for the maps I use in this forecast video, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you enjoy what I present. Let's get right into it. Taking a look at future radar here from our European model over the next few days, you can see we've got a system and a cold front making their way through parts of the Midwest all the way down to the mid-south as we go Monday and into Tuesday, and that's going to combine with a little bit of some low pressure here in parts of the southeast before heading up the east coast as we go kind of late Tuesday into Wednesday and then even into early Thursday morning over southern New England. And then look behind that, we've got a new system emerging over the central U.S. by the time we go late Thursday and into Friday, so an active week ahead. Let's start with temperatures as we track those. Our temperature anomalies out of the European model showing that we're going to be well above average by as much as 30-35 degrees over the Great Lakes as we go in towards our Monday, remaining above average even behind a cold front we get towards midweek. And then look at that, we start to see those warmer anomalies return to parts of the central U.S. by the end of the week. And let's kind of slowly go day by day here with your high temperatures. First of all, here starting out with your Monday, again, we've got a cold front up there in the Midwest. You can see those 20s and 30s up there in the parts of Minnesota. Meanwhile, in parts of the Great Lakes region, otherwise, we're looking at 60s and 70s in parts of Illinois, Michigan, even in Ohio and parts of Buffalo, New York. All these areas there seeing some record highs in those boxes there that you're seeing on your screen. All the way back down there closer to the Gulf Coast in parts of Texas in the 70s and 80s there, though. And in fact, with some pretty decent humidity as well, it's going to feel quite warm out there. The front moves a little bit further southeast Tuesday, but you could see the contrast of those 80s in Texas with those teens and 20s all the way on up there into parts of the northern Dakotas region there. And then as we go into Wednesday, look at this. Even though we're seeing that cooler air from that front kind of head on down through the Great Lakes and into parts of the northeast with 40s and 50s there, look at how we're actually seeing a return flow ahead of our next system in the central United States as temperatures surge back on up into the 60s and 70s over a lot of the southern two-thirds of the plains there. And then as you can see, as we go towards the end of this week, even we keep it pretty darn warm on Thursday with 60s and 70s over a lot of the south, and still fairly mild for this time of the year through the Great Lakes and northeast with 40s and 50s. And we see that pattern of at least some decently warm temperatures continue all the way towards next weekend. Now let's talk about severe weather for our Monday here. March 4th, 2024, we're looking at a marginal risk issued by the Storm Prediction Center from parts of Texas, Louisiana, and Arkansas, far southeastern Oklahoma, through southeast Missouri, all the way on up there into parts of northern Illinois and into Wisconsin. Looks like pretty much a almost summer-like setup with that type of front, with a very extended marginal risk there. And as temperatures warm into the 70s and even 80s in the southern part of this risk zone, we're not really too worried necessarily about the temperatures, that's for sure, with this system. Now, the moisture is going to be a little bit hard-pressed to get all the way on up there with those dew points. You need decent 60s in a lot of cases to get really good severe weather. Those will be present in the south-central part of this risk zone, but I don't know about as far north, as these low-level winds will actually be cranking up further north, though. So we'll kind of see kind of this mix of ingredients in different areas here. The only thing that's really steady and decent for everyone is the temperatures to support severe weather on Monday. Let's time this out. As we go through the end of our Sunday here, we've got a little bit of a disturbance up there into parts of the upper Midwest. That moves on out over parts of Canada. But look at how as we go into the midday time frame here on our Monday, we're already watching some convective activity, maybe trying to get going there into parts of Minnesota and Wisconsin. Some of that might bring some thunder up there through parts of northern Wisconsin and the upper peninsula of Michigan, but it's this box I'm drawing right here. That's where we've kind of got that more favorable environment ahead of some of those southern end storms from that line to produce maybe a brief spin-up tornado, but especially some large hail and gusty winds. Again, on the low-end side of things, this is a level 1 of 5 threat. In no way is this an extreme threat or an outbreak scenario that we're looking at expected here. But you can see as we go, anywhere through the late evening hours there, if you live in far southeast Minnesota, through southern Wisconsin, eastern parts of Iowa, and out there into parts of Chicago and Milwaukee, watch for the potential of some embedded kinks or some little cells out ahead of this line. It doesn't look like we're going to see really many of those discrete supercells, though. It does look like we'll see some 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts and some maybe quarter-sized hail in isolated fashion along that line. And then what we'll also watch on the southern end of this cold front here, we've got all the moisture and the warmth further south, but not quite as much in the way of the low-level jet stream. So we're kind of looking at a little bit more of just a wind and maybe hail threat as well here. As you can see, some of those bigger storms popping off there on kind of that Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi border there, so the Ark-La-Miss region, on down there into parts of New Orleans as well. Some stronger storms along the I-10 corridor popping up on the RR. Probably some very heavy rain and a flooding concern out of some of these cells, as well as they kind of station over the same areas and linger around while waiting on the front to actually pick them up. But overall, here's what I'm expecting personally as we go in towards our Monday afternoon. I'm expecting 2 zones to have at least a 2 of 7 on my severe weather risk zone scale here. So we're not looking at anything extreme, but the best chance for the tornadic supercells is in that 2 of 7 zone in northern Illinois and southern Wisconsin. The best chance for some more organized clusters to form there with some wind and hail right there in that Arklatex, Arklamis region. Now let's kind of look at the precipitation in 6-hour increments here as we go. This is as we go late Monday and into early Tuesday. Notice again the heaviest precipitation up there in the Midwest and into parts of Louisiana and Mississippi out of this system. But as we continue to watch this kind of head eastward, we're noticing some model trends that are actually showing us here, okay, this is going to kind of progress east as a front, but then eventually turn into a separate low pressure system, and you'll see what I mean here in just a second. We'll watch severe weather down there over parts of Mississippi and Alabama while the front extends all the way on up there into parts of Michigan as we go through our day Tuesday. But look at how the front, we begin to see that front weaken, so we're starting to draw X's on this front because it's starting to fall apart. But what we have to check with for the storm continuing is down there into parts of Alabama, Georgia, Florida, South Carolina, the Carolinas region, late Tuesday and then in towards our Wednesday. That's where some heavier rainfall might be possible with, half an inch to an inch of rain falling in 6-hour increments there in that region. And then continuing to head on off towards the northeast there late Wednesday and into Thursday morning is that heavier rain, and that's because a surface low develops there on the southern end of that lingering front. Now, as you can see here, your future precipitation, using the Weather Prediction Center here, you can see, look at how these totals are really expected to add on up. I mean, this is going to be a pretty considerable amount of precipitation there, especially in these zones I'm about to circle there through parts of far southern Louisiana and Mississippi, as well as into Alabama and Georgia. Some spots on there, even into southeastern Tennessee, picking up 2 to 4 inches of rain. The same goes with an initial low-pressure system and then the new one up there into parts of southern New England. We'll really have to watch those totals closely in those 2 areas. But anywhere in this box I'm drawing on your screen right now, this is where we're anticipating a pretty considerable amount of rainfall, and at least some flooding could be possible there, especially if heavier and higher totals go, because I'm certain that some spots there closer to New Orleans and then maybe in southern New England as well could pick up closer to 6 inches of rain. Again, notice that initial low out ahead of it there in the Mid-Atlantic, by the way, as we go through Tuesday in the New England region. And then the other low will catch up eventually. We're also watching Tuesday as well, some rain and heavy rain and mountain snow there into parts of Northern California, as well as parts of Oregon and Idaho there, again, Tuesday and into Wednesday. Now, as we track kind of what's going on there as we go towards the end of this week, remember I hinted at that next system here. Look at how that really begins to form as our other one heads off the east coast, that low pressure system Thursday and into Friday. Look at the low there with potential severe weather, maybe moving through parts of the southern and maybe even central plains there late Thursday night and into Friday there. And look at how that low continues to organize with snow back into the Four Corners region, potentially some severe weather late Friday there, really starting to strengthen on up there through Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama. So we really need to watch this system closely. Could bring a good bit of rain there anywhere from parts of the Central Plains and Midwest all the way on down to the Gulf Coast as well. As we go late Friday and into Saturday, the model trends continue to show this big area of rainfall in that low pressure system over parts of the Midwest, Ohio Valley, and Southeast. Best chance for severe weather as we go, say, into Saturday looks to be over parts of the Florida Panhandle and South Georgia. Then that system heads northeast, and look at that little interesting area of snow that develops on it up there in New England. We'll talk a little bit more about that in just a second, and that's what I hinted at in the intro to this video. Now, in terms of severe weather out of this system, the 500 millibar jet stream, which is kind of your mid-level jet, it's about 20,000 feet up, this is definitely showing a decent little trough here, connecting with the subtropical jet stream over parts of Texas and into Louisiana Friday and into Saturday, are right in time and right in line with that system that I was just showing you. So as of now, it does look like we'll get a decent enough trough. Is this any sort of negatively tilted, extreme severe weather setup? No, negatively tilted would be if this were pretty much curling on back against itself. This is a very flat trough, so to speak. It's not, it's not going vertical here at all in at least these scenarios that we're looking at. But nonetheless, with a lot of moisture, with a lot of lower level winds in place, we could see some severe weather development nonetheless. So I'm monitoring that potential for the start of a severe weather potential late Thursday into Thursday night there. So I've already got a 2 of 7 on my ONW severe weather scale there into parts of southern Oklahoma and northeast Texas, so you need to monitor that closely for the increased potential of severe weather during that time frame. And again, this is just preliminary. Just don't trust these graphics outright. These are just my predictions ahead of the storm. And then as we go Friday all the way into Friday night here, I'm expecting the severe weather chance to be greatest there along the Gulf Coast, Arklatex, and Arklamis region. But all the way on up there to the Midwest, if the storm takes a little bit more of a northerly track, wouldn't rule some of you out as well for the severe weather potential. But of course, that northern end snowfall that I also have hinted at with that system, we don't want to get into too many of those exact fine details out of anything right now. It does look like we could maybe see a little bit of snow up there over parts of the northern plains if this sets up correctly, especially out of the Four Corners and then on up there into the Great Lakes region. But I think the best chance for any sort of snowfall out of this system will be as we go through the end of next weekend and into a very early part of next week, so kind of March 9th through 11th time frame. Could we see some very heavy snow up there through parts of interior New England? Very much certainly so. Could a little bit of that crash on over to some of the southern New England zones and some of those coastal regions? That is not out of the question before the system is all out of the way. But look at this. This is your temperature outlook from the Climate Prediction Center, March 9th through 13th, and look what it's showing. Warmer than average over a lot of the eastern United States. That seems very common, right? It's been like that a lot lately. So not really many big changes in the outlooks as of now, and any little cool down that we might get behind these systems that I'm talking about would not last long. So again, if you want to be with me through every system, please hit that subscribe button for consistent, accurate, and easy to understand forecasts. Weather Bell Trial in the description. That's it for this one.
One Nation Weather.